Well, just over 2 years ago, we began this journey with a review of The Fellowship of the Ring, and today we close the circle with reviewers Shannon Farber and Brian Eckstein. Guys, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here, Marcus. Thanks for asking us.
First, let's get some basic questions out of the way. You saw the movie yesterday afternoon, and it is, by all accounts, a marathon, about 3.5 hours. Was it difficult to sit there that long? Did you guys notice the length of the film?
My personal feeling is that you really needed the 3.5 hours to tell this story, and it held my attention. It did not seem like 3.5 hours long. It was an intense, meaty program, a great piece of film that held my attention the entire time, and I can't say that about the first two shows, but I can say that about this show.
Absolutely. My husband is always saying, oh, this film could be longer. And again, I say the same thing about this one. I never once looked at my watch. I never thought, oh, is this ever going to end? I just kept thinking, I hope this doesn't end. This is so good.
You're just glued to the screen.
You are. The flow was perfect. It was just awe-inspiring.
The flow is perfect. Now, I've heard some people talking about the beginning of the film and its flow. And what do you think about that?
I'll give you that. That's true.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, not to give too much away, but the way the film begins, it just sort of started. There was no build-up. There was no. I wanted to see the Fellowship. I wanted to see those characters that I became such good friends with through the first two movies. And when it begins with Smeagol,
the story of Smeagol's beginning.
Yes.
And to be perfectly honest, now I haven't read the Tolkien books, but I didn't really get that whole point from the movie. I thought it was a little bit confusing.
I would have liked to have seen it someplace else. It was an interesting and important storyline. However, I didn't like the placement. It could have gone a little bit farther down someplace.
So other than that, flow
Yeah.
was great and it moved. I thought it moved well. There were no dragging parts, I thought.
What was your favorite moment in the movie?
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I think I'm going to just say the ending, and without telling you the ending.
No, we're going to try to stay away from spoilers, as they're called.
Right.
But let me answer that question this way. What struck me most about the movie that I'll remember for all time is you see the friendship between Sam and Frodo at a whole new level, taken to a level that I don't think see in our daily lives as human beings, and certainly in the world of literature. Few characters have the kind of friendship bond that Sam and Frodo have, and for me that was very, very meaningful and powerful.
A powerful moment for me, and again, without trying not to give anything away, when Sam and Frodo were in a situation, and they were working on destroying the ring, and they were very weak, and they just clung to the top of this rock formation, and we're not sure what's going to happen to them, and they're just so weak, and they just can't go on. So you can just sort of see them just kind of maybe giving up. We're not sure. And then in the distance, you see these larger-than-life creatures flying in, and as they get closer, you realize that they're eagles, and these eagles pick up...
No, you're going to spoil it now.
But anywho...
You like that part.
I did, because eagles equate America to me, and it was a very powerful moment to see these eagles taking care of things, and I'll leave it at that.
I think along those lines, you were talking about Frodo and Sam and the dynamic between them. You also get a sense of how much the ring has destroyed Frodo and just racked him with emotional and physical pain that you find out has permanently changed him. And that's another really, I think, key point in this movie.
I think that's a key point. I know in the books, and they've come across fairly well in the movies as well, the way that the ring stains everything that it comes into contact with. Speaking of the other two movies, now, I remember the first movie, Brian, you had a negative review of, mostly because of the ending and the way it just left you there. And in the second movie, it didn't hold your attention all the way through, because you fell asleep.
Okay, well,
did this moving on to the future? Did this movie satisfy as a I mean, we're looking at 6 hours build up just to get to this movie, and so your the climax of the series, the climax of the 9-hour movie, it has to pay off. It would seem to me. Otherwise, you'd feel like you wasted the other two movies. Did it pay off for you?
I agree that what you said, Marcus, about the first two movies being build up, and that's all it was. It was all just build up, and because I haven't read the Tolkien series, I really didn't understand that this was all just build-up. So the first two movies were largely disappointing to me because I was not as informed as other people who've read the books about what was coming.
You haven't gone to Geek 101. That was your problem. I did a long time ago.
But you get to the third movie, and it is the payoff. It really ties the two movies together, and there's plot development, and it moves, and you finally get a sense that these characters are committed to their roles and to their cause, and it just comes together in a way that is magnificent.
Well, I think, too, that when you are watching the first two movies, because they are sequels and you know that going in, it's sort of like, okay, that's great. Now the anticipation builds. And then when you're watching, the movie, you think, I hope they tied this up. I hope they explain this. I hope I understand that. And with this movie, whether you've read the books or not, I think seeing this, you have that sense of completion, and everything is whole and put together, and you have a sense
fade
of,
to black.
Yeah, absolutely, because everything is tied together. You aren't left wondering what happened to so and so. To me, it's full and complete.
And after the second movie, I thought, how are they going to get all this wrapped up? How are they going to explain all this? And they do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know some people had some issues about their younger children seeing some of the first two movies. There's a lot of violence. There's a whole lot of violence, and the intensity of, say, the Helm's Deep battle in the Two Towers was difficult for some people to watch. I mean, it's movie fantasy violence, but how about the level of violence in this particular movie?
I didn't see this movie as violent as the first two. I think the second film was far more violent from my perspective. This film did not have as much hardcore violence. You didn't see as much blood, and when you did, it made sense. It wasn't just to be gory. It made sense within the plot of the movie. So I felt that this was not as violent. Brian, what did you think?
I would agree, although there are a couple of scenes that were pretty intense. I don't think anyone under 13 needs to see it.
Yeah,
to be honest, and I think it takes an older person to appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that some people just have different built-in tolerances or built-in calluses to the violence, and I think that people should know that it gets very intense, and the battle scenes I'm hearing are quite long and protracted, and so it's not necessarily just the events that are difficult. What are some things that quickly we've got about a minute and a half? What are some things that you would have liked to have seen but didn't? You're not comparing it to the books, either one of you, because you haven't read them, but just for yourselves.
Well, for me, when I saw the first two movies, I really enjoyed the relationship between Legolas and Gimli.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed their teasing and their friendship, and they were very, very bonded. And that carried through to the second film. The third film, I didn't get that sense of development with them. They were sort of like extras in this for me. They didn't play a major part as they did in the past two films, and I enjoyed that part. It was just another warm character development.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, I missed seeing the appearance of the wizard, the Dark Wizard Saruman, the bad wizard. He did not make an appearance in this movie, and he did in the other two, and that was a little puzzling to me. You still felt the evil presence of the Dark Lord, but you didn't see the wizard like you did in the other movies.
But in general, I think we're both coming away with thumbs up on this one.
Absolutely.
Thumbs up. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Loved it.
We certainly appreciate both of your time to go see it. You're suffering for Indiana ArtsDesk. I know you were. We really appreciate that. And we'll have to find another series at some point for you guys to start reviewing. We're not going to go back and do the old Star Wars or Star Trek or anything, but we certainly appreciate it. And we'd like to encourage you to make a commitment to read some of the books by next December, but that's mostly an editorial comment on my part. So this is Indiana ArtsDesk. I'm Marcus Jackman. Thanks to Brian Eckstein and Shannon Farber for their help. A reminder, you can hear Indiana ArtsDesk every Thursday at 4:20 and 6:20 here on IPR.